Yeah, well, because we got to practice, because next month our focus is the healing power of humor. Yeah, it's gonna be bad. It's gonna be bad. Yeah. And I'm very grateful for that upbeat introduction because today is the tail end, at the end of our focus on the power of you, and today's topic is self-command. So I have to tell you what's wrong with you today. Oh, I'm sure I can find something. This is the last chapter in this book, The Power of You, is about self-command, and I think of self-command in the sense of mastery. Like the class we teach in the summer, self-mastery. It's not about dictating what you should do or being domineering or disciplinarian. It's the sort of mastery that comes when you study something like yoga, or an instrument or a language, and through the study of it, you become a master of that subject. And that's what practice will do. Practice will lead you to a point where you are intimately familiar with the subject, and when you're that familiar with something, it allows mastery to arise. And when mastery is present, artistry is possible. Oh, and an artist can do so much more with an instrument than, say, can someone who just picks it up now and then. I remember when I was a young person, I was studying to play the flute, and I came from a very poor family, so when I got the instrument that was bought for me by my family, I was a bit disappointed because it was used and it was a little cranky flute, and when I learned how to play the flute on it, I did not stop complaining about the condition of the flute. And I remember talking to my teacher who was a master, and he just got so fed up listening to me complain about it. He just took the flute out of my hands and he played it. And out from this cranky instrument came this awesome, beautiful music. And I never forgot that. He did not let the condition of the instrument inhibit him from bringing forth his mastery. So this little book gives us 7 practical steps for how you can accomplish self-command. And I'm going to read them through with you, but really we ought to make our own list of ideas that will lead us to self-command. And the first one in the book is this: stop praying for anything except the awareness of your true value. That's right. It's the idea of stop reaching so hard and for everything that you think will complete you. Stop looking for it. Stop grasping for it. And the style in which we stop is important because we can kind of stop in a petulant, give up way. I've had it. No, not that kind of stopping. Not in the giving up way, but rather in the giving way. Giving way to what? Giving way to what is always and already true of you, even in the absence of your answered prayer. So then it's a redirection of thought, of attention that we're talking about from what you think will complete you to your native state and the value that is in that. Oh. We talked a couple of weeks ago about Augmendino and the memorandum from God, and in that book he talks about how you and I are the greatest miracle in the world, because out of all the possible humans that could have been brought forth from creation, you. And to dwell on that, to cherish what you are, with or without your answered prayer. The mastery that rises up from that. So you stop praying for anything except the awareness of your value, and then you practice making choices that cause you to feel good about yourself. In other words, you favor choices that have long-term benefits instead of the short-lived gratification choices that Americans seem to be obsessed with. It's an epidemic. We have a fascination with immediate gratification. Oh, yes, we do. It shows up in chronic situations like chronic indebtedness, which is the culture of I must have it now, even if I can't afford it. It shows up in chronic addiction, which is the culture of there is always a better frame of mind for me to feel and be in than the one I am actually in. It shows up in the form of chronic distractions, in the form of cheap, easy entertainment that requires no participation from me whatsoever and leads nowhere. Oh. How do you make choices that you'll feel good about? Well, I think maybe the answers are in some of these slides, and which, by the way, to our radio listening audience, you can see these slides on our free video content on our website at www.cslsr.org. It's available there. So here's a good one. Stop what needs to be stopped. Whatever it is, stop it. I got so into this one. A couple of years ago, I made my own list of 10 things that I could stop immediately that would contribute to my happiness and peace of mind. So you make your own list, just share mine with you. They're very small because there are 10 of them, so I'll read it to you. The first one, stop watching too much television. Because there is so much junk on TV, and then even when it's a good show, there's so much advertising to wade through that it ends up being a waste of your precious time. And friends of mine tell me this, but that's how I decompress after a busy, stressful day. That's how I veg out in front of the TV. Now look, granted, I'm pretty much committed to my favorite shows, and I'm probably not going to budge on those. However, when I am tired, and when I am stressed, and when I am vulnerable, and when I am hurt, and when I am lost, and when I am empty, the best thing for me to do is to not watch TV. There's a time and a place for everything. There's a time and a place for mindless vegging, but not in the amount that is offered to us. Excess. Going for a walk, a slow, gentle, mindful, leisurely walk, no matter what time it is, no matter what the weather, get a raincoat. Beats TV every single time in terms of relaxation, decompressing, revitalizing a tired soul, stimulating creativity, increasing oxygen intake, and it all leads to clarity and peace in a way that TV cannot deliver. Stop having no time for quiet time, Edward. The reasons that people tell me why they can't carve out 15 minutes of their busy schedule to be quiet are endless. Endless. Waterproof. Okay? And so it is. You're right. Stop it. Look, if you don't want to sit still for 15 minutes, you're not going to. You're going to come up with concrete reasons why you can't, and you're going to make them defendable to the point where nobody's ever going to be able to counter them. And frankly, I don't know your schedule and your lifestyle well enough to convince you otherwise. So stop it. Just stop depriving yourself of one of the most beneficial, easiest, nourishing, life-affirming practices I have ever encountered. Just sit still for 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes. You don't even have to have an agenda. First thing in the morning, if possible, sit and meet yourself. Stop depending on your own counsel alone. It's disastrous. Another way of saying the same thing is start listening to others. And this is where our cultures collide. The culture of rugged individual and we are one. If we are one. Why am I not listening to you? Stop having no way for wisdom to find its way into your mind, Edward. Stop being so self-dependent and let yourself benefit from the wisdom of the people around you and even the not-so-wise people around you. But there are people that are wise. There are experts in their field around us. There are people who love us around us. There are role models that we admire around us. Listen to them. Make a habit of asking people, what do they think about your ideas? You don't have to accept their advice if you don't want to. But you will find that as you make that practice of asking people, you will experience an expansion in your life because you will be starting something, connection, an enriching of community. You will definitely be doing something that contributes to a sense of happiness through connecting, and self-command rises up from that so naturally. Stop criticizing yourself when you make errors. If you're in the habit of talking to yourself in language that is self-defeating, maybe even a little mean, maybe a little cruel because you think in the sanctity of your own mind nobody else can hear, stop it. I mean, just take the invitation maybe to try for one whole week to imagine that everything you say to yourself in your own mind is transcribed and broadcast onto a banner that you carry around with you. And people can read it. Do you know we can see it? Yeah. It's not in words, but we can. Haven't you seen a friend putting themselves down and not a word was uttered, but you can see it happening? Yeah, we can see it anyway. And if you're one of those people who can answer unhesitatingly, yeah, I don't speak like that to myself, wonderful. And for everybody else, the invitation is to introduce a little more gentleness into your process, your self-process of self-talk, a little more friendliness, a little more kindness. See if you can speak to yourself in a more forgiving and gracious way, and if you can accomplish that, that's self-command, if you can do that. Stop trying to make other people be different. No, so much unhappiness can be avoided with just that. I'm not saying people shouldn't behave themselves and that people shouldn't keep agreements and people shouldn't behave in ethical ways. They should. But you see, they don't. They don't. That's the way of things. And to want it to be different is just torturous. So I'm not talking about becoming a doormat for humanity. I'm not talking about when you don't speak up because an agreement has been broken. I'm just talking about holding people in a gentler and happier way so that my walk through life is gentler and happier and it's easier for people to be with me. And stop hiding behind, that's just the way I am. Ha. People use the truth in the same way. I'm just speaking my truth. They deliver it like an axe blow. And they don't care about the emotional wake that they leave behind them because they spoke to the truth, and people do the same thing with their personality. That's just who I am. And in the moment when you announce that, you might feel a rush of freedom and pride, but don't you know, over time it tears away at the fabric of closeness and intimacy. Intimacy starts to get less, and relationships are diminished, and when relationships are diminished, happiness flees. And stop putting other people down. Oh, I know it's difficult being so intelligent. and being able to see other people's problems so clearly. But don't worry, you're not alone. We can all see it. It's an amazing, wonderful thing that we are able to see with such exacting clarity and focus the problems that other people have in their personality, while exactly at the same time we cannot see our own. It is a miracle. Look, whether you're right or wrong in your assessment of other people, try this. Try just not putting people down for a week. Start with refraining from put-down language. You want the advanced course? Refrain from put-down thinking in your mind. I mean, you want self-command? That's where it is. And you know your mind is going to go crazy with the problem of what to do with all the time that is freed up. What are you going to do? You could watch TV. Stop wishing for a better past. As if we can do anything to change our past. We cannot. Or can we? You know, a friend of mine shared this notion with me that he said, in fact, indeed we can change our past in that exact moment when we learn to accept our present. I had to think about that. I mean, it really worked in my head. I had to think about it, and it's helped me tremendously to let things be and to arrive here in the present moment, because I realized how much energy and time and thought I was investing as my resources to maintain the past by rethinking it and re-engineering it to figure out if there was a better way it could turn out, all the way being tired from it and not being available to where I was. All the time, and what a rush of happiness came into my life when I landed just a little more solidly in the present moment with just as much weight, just as much height, just as much wealth, just as much accomplishment as I have right now. Land there, and then you can say that phrase we close the service with, something wonderful is happening through me right now. Stop holding on so tightly. A friend of mine once jokingly called me a Klingon. Not because I was a fierce warrior, but because of my habit of clinging on and on and on and on to people, to ideas, to events. And although we laughed, how we laughed about the corny cleverness of the phrase, I never forgot it. I never forgot the idea, because it helped me identify the happiness-draining effects of clinging on to people, opinions, being right, objects, you name it, just too tightly. And I started to let go, or more accurate, I started to let be. And in that moment, I opened up a pathway for happiness into a place in me where it was never possible to come. And I'm talking about in my mind, because my mind was clinging on to so many things. And this relaxation started to present itself. Stop complaining. Oh, complaining has a powerful energy, don't you know? But it's not a bright energy. It's sticky. It's a sticky kind of off-putting energy. And I know there are times definitely when we ought to speak up in the presence of injustice, or when we should speak up for ourselves, and when agreements haven't been kept. All the same, I'm saying that probably there is an invitation for us to inquire, is there a more beautiful way for me to say what is mine to say? There always is. So you can make your own list of 10 things. I mean, this is just mine, things you can stop right now. I don't expect the list to be the same for everyone. I wrote this one for myself. But, when you take a stand for your own happiness, the sense of self-command that comes out of that. But let us go back to the list in the book. Get involved with your passion. At some point in your spiritual journey, in our spiritual journey, we are going to have to come to the realization that we have been taught to look in some of the strangest places for our happiness. That is the impression that is put upon us. It's weird. And I think universally, the emphasis seems to be on the outside. By that I mean accomplishments, acquisitions, people, relationships, even food and jobs and shelter. All of these are held up as the standard for how you measure your happiness. And whereas these things are important, and they're wonderful, and we can learn to have a wonderful relationship with them by using our prayer and our mind and our meditation and everything else that works towards getting that. We can't, at the same time, help but notice that life is filled up with stories of people who have all of these things and more and remain unhappy and unconnected to their passion. We can't help but notice. And also that there are a good many people who have practically nothing and are able to find contentedness and meaning and connection. So we must do the math and look into the question. It's important to ask, what makes a person happy? And when we ask that question, we will have started to really examine what it is we want out of this beautiful and precious life. And then we can go on a gentle treasure hunt to excavate it. Start with what you like. Do you like nature? Be in it a lot. You like music? Go to where music is a lot. Do you like people? Help them a lot. You believe in children and the youth of the world? Support them a lot. And this will gently, step by step, will lead you to your passion. It will connect you to it. It will. Don't postpone doing what has heart and meaning for you. Oh, you're going to love this next slide. Take care of your body. This means develop the healthy habit of taking care of nurturing this spaceship that you have. It's called your body, the one that is yours, to travel through this time and space in, however it is. I remember my first car. My aunt, my godmother, I loved that woman. She gave me her beat-up old Fiat, old boxy square thing, kind of a reddish orange, and the seats weren't even bolted down properly in their place. I loved that Fiat. It was so beat up, and I did what I knew how to do to fix everything up, and I cleaned it up. I loved it so much. I polished it, and it took me everywhere I needed to go. And even though sometimes it needed a little more effort than other people's cars, but I just had such pride in it, and I got to where I needed to be in it. America is under a terrible hypnotic spell when it comes to body image. It's like a horrible nightmare. A horrible, horrible nightmare when it comes to body, nutrition, exercise, as a nightmare in which bad, bad things are held up and we're told that they are good. All the time. Oh, to stay mindful and awake. I'll tell you what I'm talking about. Fast food. Which food is fast and nutrition poor with empty calories filled up with carbohydrates. And they're held up and told this is good. And beautiful people eat it all the time. It's described as healthy and wholesome and desirable. I'll tell you what I'm talking about. Dangerous food. Food that's filled up with high fructose corn syrup and all kinds of cell-damaging, strange chemicals that are known to cause trouble in our fine, balanced system. And they're held up and said they are normal and good for you, and beautiful people consume it all the time, and they're so slender. I'll tell you what I'm talking about. A sedentary lifestyle, which is well known to contribute to depression, is well known to negatively impact systems in our body, well known. I'll tell you what I'm talking about. Unhealthy social standards, norms in which it is held up as normal and desirable to consume too much alcohol and too much tobacco and too many drugs. The good news, America, is that with relatively little effort, you and I can change that and become aware of the horrible nightmare and begin to wake up from it, because you and I can learn the truth about our food and our body, because we have access to more information than any generation before us has ever had. We are information rich, and we can begin to regain self-command over our instrument, even if it is a beat up old Fiat. Schedule pleasant events and activities. I was speaking to a colleague of mine, a minister, and she was so worn out from her work in the ministry. There seemed to be so many people pulling at her for help and information. She felt the sense of being drained because she was always attending to all these problems. So I listened to her and listened to how busy her schedule was, and I said to her, why don't you schedule time to hang out with people you like? And she looked at me and she said, can I do that? And she did. And she made this massive change in her energy. And as much as it was easy for me to give the advice, it caused me to look into my own life and see, do I actually schedule time to be with the people I love? Do I actually make that a priority? Do I actually schedule to do something every single day that I enjoy? Or is my schedule killing me? And whose fault is that? Let me recap. Stop praying for anything except the awareness of your value. Make choices that cause you to feel good about yourself. And stop what needs to be stopped. And get involved in your passion. Take care of your body. And schedule pleasant events and activities. And finally, begin to treat yourself as if you are someone that you truly love. And I'll let you make your own list of how you ought to do that. I have a suspicion, though. My thought is that if you do any of this, just some of it, it will begin to open the doorway of self-love, because that love inside of you will respond to the outreached hand of your actions with so much warmth and color and truth and beauty. It will come to you. It's there. It will respond to the nurturing that you give to yourself, for sure. Let us pray. As you breathe in with me, letting your eyes close, let us turn our thoughts to the opening affirmation. I consciously take my place as the creator of my own world. And I'm remembering that it is through the power of the one creator, which is everywhere present. Its energy, its mind, its love is what creates through me. And I am, by means of this prayer, aligning myself with everything that it is in me and in the world, love and truth and beauty. It is an undivided, unconflicted power. It has no opposites. And so I let fall away from me all the intellectual objections to why it couldn't be so that I may dwell in the beautiful embrace of a single, all-powerful, everywhere present, Oh, what an amazing grace rises up in me as I let myself dwell in the nature of my being, as I become illuminated from within, and then that light is not only for myself and my own life, but for everyone. So I covenant with myself to look upon everyone I meet today and next week and the week after, to look upon them as if the very spot where they are is the center of the entire universe, and I let this covenant change me. I'm so glad to have prayed in this way, and I'm so glad that there is a spiritual law that listens in on my prayers, so to speak, if I can say it that way. It agrees with me, and I with it, and all is well, and so it is.